Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
Motivators are a really important part inside of any business. And, sometimes it's not just about increasing pay. It's actually about thinking, what are some incentives and what are some bonuses that you can put in play? Dean, this is a really important part, for whether or not we're in sales or our investment management, property management sections of our business. What is a great motivator? What's a great incentive? What's the difference between a bonus and something that's actually going to happen for the rest of their career in terms of the remuneration structures? If you've got any ideas here on things that you've seen that have worked really well, and maybe even some go-wrongs where it was almost like Falcon, where it just did not work and actually wasn't a great incentive and wasn't a great motivator.
Incentives and bonuses are an interesting one because some of them can be money, cash-based, and others can be more a bit more intangible. Because don't forget, people turn up to work because they also want to have a sense of belonging and fun and all those, and competition and leaderboards, and so it's not just about that. So I think people like to have recognition as much as they like to have bonuses and incentives. And so the things I've learned over the years are a couple of things. So I'd sort of stay, and we've got a range of different things we do in the business. And I think the first point is to say, if you've actually got someone running a part of the business, or they've got a certain position description and so on, you should have KPIs attached to their functions. So the delivery of that business plan or the delivery of that particular role in the business. And so then it's a matter of getting clear about how do you align then some incentives or bonuses to those KPIs. And so that'll drive a lot of behaviour over and above if it's a good incentive that directs, at the end of the day, you want people to do it, but if people have got behaviours connected to outcomes, and it's often, I'm always, we often pay people for outcomes, but it's about also how you drive behaviours on the inputs to get those outcomes, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can connect that, and then you can, and then every month you have an opportunity to sit down and talk about progress towards that, and then keeping it on track, and, whether you're paying people in different ways, whether it be, quarterly or annually or whatever. There's lots of ways, but having little milestones along the way for that sort of stuff and regular conversation keeps it on track, because you don't want to be any surprises about whether you're getting a bonus or not. And, it's sort of one of those conversations. Sometimes people put in a bonus or put in an incentive and then there's no conversation about it until the end of the year, and then everyone gets the shits, right? So I'm of the view that you can actually drive behaviours by staying focused on that if it's meaningful and valuable to the person who's it's driving an outcome that's related to, either to their business plan or to their role. So that's the first thing I would say. And it doesn't just have to be about sales targets or whatever. Like, if you've got support people delivering service, it can be service related too, right? So there's lots of different ways in which, as you dig deeper into the world of incentives and bonuses, there's lots of ways you can do it. You just do a Google search and find out heaps of stuff on that. So my tips would be to get clear on the role, get clear on the KPIs, and then focus on inputs as much as the results. I'd also say to you, if you're going to do this stuff, make sure it's meaningful, right? But it's also clear and measurable. So, the thing I just said, it was about having progress conversations and monitoring it and tracking progress so there's no surprises. I think, for things that have gone wrong for me, it's when you haven't done that stuff and then you're off track but you don't know it, and people are holding stuff back, and or people sandbagging because they didn't hit last quarter so they want to hit next quarter. So there's all these little things that come up in this process. But I think if you reward fairly and you reward consistently and it's transparent, it's sort of you can get a really good culture around performance, because ultimately you're rewarding over and above performance. What you don't want to do is be setting incentives which are just about what you'd expect that role should do anyway. It's like, okay, cool, well, so I'm paying you a fair day's pay for that, and here it is. But if you achieve X, Y, Z over and above that, 5%, 10%, 20% and above, then there's different ways we could ratchet up an incentive. So I've learned over the years there's different ways to do it. So, making sure that you've got a good mix between short-term and long-term incentives. So some people are getting paid bonuses on a quarterly basis or whatever, but we also do over and above stuff. So, for example, in our business, there's 3 or 4 different things we do. two of which are focused on a quarterly basis. One we're about to kick off right now, which we call the Lottie, and it's all got to do with a whole bunch of weighted KPIs across the sales team. It becomes a bit of a competition. It's really quite cool, and there's a leaderboard, and it gets ramped up, and everyone sort of jumps on. And all across the business, at different levels, people can actually find a way to get themselves onto this sort of competition, right? Mm-hmm. We do one around October as well, August sort of through to September, October. It's all about auctions. Mm-hmm. We call that Oktoberfest, funny enough. Mm-hmm. And that's also a quarterly sales-based one, but it just ramps up really good energy and it makes the business a lot of fun and gets people focused for those periods of time. And then we also do an annual one where it's all about high performance, and it's our Aspire program. So all across the business, from sales and property management, and there's a few admin spots and a CEO award and so on, that I take them on a sort of all expenses paid trip. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we measure and monitor and report on every month, and people really want to try and get onto. So they're sort of more formal programs, but something that we did last week, which was quite cool, it was driven by one of our lead sales agents, and Josh, you were there. We ran a session. He got up and he sort of put a challenge out to the team, and it was just around prospecting, right? So they created a WhatsApp group. It got some momentum. Lots of people jumped on board, but it was really simple. For those of the people who hit their targets, they actually gave themselves a little mini reward target, and it wasn't driven by us as a business. They set their own incentives on it, and they said, okay, if I achieve this, I'm going to do X as a reward for myself. If I don't, then here's the consequence. And so we make the consequences fun too. So the one that got put up as an example by this particular individual was that if he didn't do it, he had to dress up in a Santa suit and wash a whole bunch of people's cars outside the office. And of course, he actually didn't hit his target back then, and he then actually had to follow through with the consequence. And I must say, I think there was some secondary gain in that consequence for him, because it was a bit of a laugh and everyone had a good time. But nonetheless, you can focus on incentives at all levels. On little weekly stuff, monthly, quarterly, annually. But it's got to be things that are meaningful, that people can understand the value in, and it's really clear about how you can achieve or not.
And I remember you having like an auction with they weren't Dean Mackie dollars, but people were literally given some cash and you had a prize pool. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was a property management incentive we used to run. And everybody wanted to get into this, because what we did was we basically ascribed auction dollars for different types of things. So if it was a referral that converted into an appointment, a referral that converted into a management, and so on and so on and so on. And we'd run it for 3 or 4 months of the year, and you had to earn a certain amount of dollars to actually even come along on the night. And we used to make sure the night was an incredible night. It was one of those nights where we'd have a different theme. It was often fancy dress. We'd lay it on. We'd bring in the auctioneers. It was great. And the prizes were phenomenal. We'd spend good money. So the money that we'd normally otherwise pay in referral payments, we'd actually put it into goods that they all wanted to get. And so it was quite funny, because on the night, some things that you would think, because auction dollars just become auction dollars, you can issue them in any multiple you want, but some people would save all their money because they had a strategy on what they wanted to buy, and they might miss out. And so it was quite interesting, the whole gameplay that went on. And it was one of these things that we probably did it for 4 or 5 years in a row, and it was hugely successful. And I think it was because people, they didn't want to miss out on the night. And so we had people then referring through on property management that would never normally refer through on property management because they didn't want to miss out. So there's different ways you can do this, but my advice is have some fun. Make sure it's meaningful, and make sure that there's no surprises. Make sure it's clear and measurable.
Dean, there's some really good advice in that. Sometimes I sit with people, and outside of a bonus or incentive program, I might say, okay, well, how can I help you to increase your income? Yes. So if you're in sales, it might be increasing average sale price, might be volume of transactions, it may be fee, growing a team of fee producers, having someone else in your team that's starting to produce a little bit. There might be some things around property management referral and how that's actually paid out. Maybe buying in for profit share as a business owner over time. Maybe some extra duties, like they might do some sales management functions where ultimately the board can actually say, hey, we can put some funds towards that. And then in property management, it could be about increasing rents, making sure that they increase the amount of revenue that they manage to be able to get a pay increase, increase maybe the sales referrals of the landlord's principal place of residence, being able to get a landlord to buy another investment property, and maybe even just making sure that one-off fees, for example, are actually being charged correctly. And if they hit the agreed target on that, then actually there might be some earnings bonuses. Sure. So they're really little things, but I think like clearly getting them articulated and written out and making sure that they link to proper business performance can make a big difference.
Well, that's
to
what I mean.
business
If you
success.
start with your business plan and you cascade that into KPIs and you provide incentives around that, then that's half the secret.